Hi, I'm Brian D. Smith. I am a grief guide, a mental fitness trainer, and I'm the host of the Grief to Growth podcast.
What is the soul?
The soul is kind of the collective part of I believe, our spirits. I believe when we come into this world, we have a spirit that's connected with our body, and our soul is our collective spirits that we've had over a course of many lifetimes. Typically, when people think of the soul, they think of themselves as an individual, but I believe that our spirit is what we are as an individual in a human lifetime, and a collection of our lifetimes together constitute our soul. So for me, it's a little bit more complicated than just the soul or the spirit, but the soul is essentially who we are at our core.
What is the soul's relation to Source/God?
I believe the soul's relationship to Source/God is we are aspects of God. We are drops of God, if you want to use that word. A really good metaphor is that water in the ocean, the drops in the ocean, are part of the ocean itself. So, what our soul is we're all one, we're all part of that collective consciousness.
Are human incarnations voluntarily chosen?
Yes, I do believe that human incarnations are voluntarily chosen. We are never forced to incarnate. I believe that we choose to have experiences and to grow. I do believe that human incarnations are voluntarily chosen, but I can understand why people might think they're not. When we experience things that are very difficult, we might say, well, I would never choose this. And from our human perspective, you might not. But from the higher perspective, from the soul's perspective, in order to grow, I think sometimes we choose to experience hardships and we come here to have these things so that we can grow our consciousness.
What's the purpose of life on the physical plane?
When we talk about the purpose of life on the physical plane, a lot of times people think in terms of a straightforward linear thing, like we come here just to grow, like Earth is a school, or Earth is a training ground. And I believe that's true. I believe it's true for a lot of souls. But some people come here just to have fun. Some people come here just to have the experience, to experience contrast. Just like we do as humans, we go out and we have adventures. I think as souls, we want to just go out and have adventures sometimes.
Do souls have more than one incarnation, either on Earth or elsewhere?
I believe the evidence points to souls having more than one incarnation on Earth and in other places. Now, reincarnation can become a very complicated subject. I know some people believe that we only have one life. I believe that we have multiple lives. They're not necessarily linear. I believe they occur actually concurrently, and this is supported by near-death experience people that tell us that outside of our physical experience, that time is not linear the way we experience it here. But I do believe that we have more than one experience as a soul. So when we get into this, I think that our soul can incarnate into multiple lifetimes, which actually occur concurrently. So because there's no time outside of our physical experience. So this is the way I combine the idea of only living one life and also living multiple lives. But as an individual, as Brian, I will only incarnate once, but my soul will incarnate multiple times across many different experiences.
Does the soul plan its incarnations ahead of time?
Yeah, I think the evidence points to the fact that we absolutely plan our lives ahead of time. Now, this doesn't mean that every detail of our life is planned out. It doesn't mean that we don't have free will while we're existing. And it doesn't mean that accidents don't happen as well. But I believe the overall arching theme of our lives is planned out ahead of time.
Do we have soul groups that we incarnate with across different lifetimes?
I believe we do have soul groups that we incarnate with across different lifetimes. And this goes back to the soul planning because I believe we don't plan our lives individually, but we plan them as a group and what's best for the entire group. And this is really brought out in the concept in Frankie Key's books, the team books, which I'm a big fan of. So yeah, I think we do plan our lives ahead of time and we do plan them as groups.
Are there contracts or agreements between souls?
Yes, I do believe there are contracts and agreements between souls before we come in. And I do believe that we have groups that we come in with and we play different roles. I had a past life regression. I remember being with my daughters in various ways where in one life I was their father in law, one life I might have been their son. Also, there are people in our lives that sometimes we look at them and we're like, why is this guy in my life? I believe that everyone here is to teach us something. And I think sometimes people play the role of the bad guy. They might come in and do things that we find irritating or annoying, but they do it in order to further us. And when they take the mask off and we're back on the other side, we'll see the true meaning of why they were in our lives. When it comes to the aggravating people in our lives, sometimes seeing the purpose might be difficult, but if you think about it, sometimes people will spur you to action by causing you anger, for example. Or you might have a boss that irritates you to the point where you actually leave your job and you find a different opportunity. So, what I try to encourage people to do is always look for the quote silver lining in anything that happens and look at where somebody might be trying to spur you to do something different or might be trying to inspire you by being annoying or irritating in your life.
Do spirit guides or angels assist us?
Spirit guides are really interesting because I've talked to a lot of people about their spirit guides, and some of us, like myself, don't get direct communication from our spirit guides, whereas others might actually even hear them or actually see them in their incarnations. I believe that we meet with our spirit guides at night when we dream. We usually forget that. Our spirit guides can guide us by inspiring us. Many thoughts that we have that we think are our own, I don't believe are our own. They come from our spirit guides, from our ancestors, from other beings that are around us. But our spirit guides are there to kind of like your parents kind of treated you. They're there to help you to move along. They challenge you. They stay out of the way. They're not there to live your life for you, but they're there to kind of keep you on the path.
What is death?
Death is the physical cessation of our bodily functions. So, from the human perspective, many of us think that death is the end. I believe that death is actually a transition. It's like walking through a door, it's like taking off an old coat. I've talked to many people that have had near death experiences, and they say they really never lost consciousness. They were here one second, and they were in the next dimension another second. So tell people that death is actually a new beginning. It's like waking up from a dream.
What is the veil of forgetting and why do we need it?
The veil of forgetting is when we come into this world, we leave the memories of our spirit world behind. And the reason for it is if we want to experience the contrast, we want to experience all the feelings of being human. We want to experience fear, anger, even the things that we call the negative emotions. And I was interviewing a guy for my podcast. He said something I thought was really fascinating. He said, we come here to feel abandonment. And it's the first person I've ever heard say that. But when you're in spirit, you're so deeply connected, you're so deeply known that you're loved, you can never really experience what it feels like to be alone. And we come here to have that experience to understand how truly deeply loved we are because we can really appreciate things by contrast. So the veil of forgetfulness is here to allow us to have the full human experience.
Discuss the role of free will in a given incarnation.
When it comes to free will versus destiny, I believe that we do have free will, which is the ability to make on the ground decisions or make choices. But I do believe that destiny is there as kind of like the overall plan for our lives that that we agree to go on or that we say we want to go on. And I believe we have guides that kind of guide us along with that. And there's a great movie by a guy named Philip K. Dick, and it's called The Adjustment Bureau. And in that movie, there's this overall plan for the characters' lives, but they have free will within that. And the plan actually gets adjusted as they're going through it. And that's the way I see it. I think that there is a plan, but we do have the ability to make decisions while we're here and I also believe there may be some accidents. So I think it's kind of all of the above.
Is life on the physical plane an illusion?
Life in the physical is an illusion in a sense, but in the sense that everything is an illusion. Everything is energy. Everything happens within our minds. And if you think about it this way, when you're in a dream, when I'm in bed at night, in that dream, everything seems perfectly real. But when I wake up in the morning, I say it was only a dream. It only happened in my mind. Similarly, when I die, when I leave this physical body, I believe it's kind of like waking up from a dream. And I realized that all of this was in my mind. So everything is an illusion, but everything is also reality. When people talk about the world being an illusion, I think what they're really referring to is the world being temporary. And this world absolutely is temporary. So when we think about going up one level, for example, when we die or when we pass away, we would say that's the real reality. But similar to when we're having a dream at night, when I'm in that dream is my reality. That experience is very real. And then what we experience here is real. We experience pain, we experience loss, we experience suffering. It's real, but it's temporary. And then again, when we move on to the next level, it'll be not temporary, it's not time constrained. So that's what people mean when they say this is an illusion. So while the experience is temporary, the experience is real.
Describe the life between lives.
I think what happens between incarnations is we go to what I call home, home with a capital H. I believe that's our natural state, that state of being outside of this physical body. This is like an avatar. When I speak about myself, when I speak about my body, I view this as a vessel that I use when I come into this temporary experience. So the life between lives, as we call it, the afterlife, as we call it a lot of times, that's our real home. So what happens between incarnations, there's a lot of controversy about this. Some people think of that as just like a way station. We go back there, we plan our lives, and we come right back here. That may be true for some souls. Some souls choose to stay there for a long time. Some souls choose to never incarnate. There are other dimensions, there are other planets, there are other universes to explore. So I think we can get really constrained when we think about it, when we say, what's the one thing that happens in life between lives? It's multiple things. It's what we choose to do. And we might choose to come back here or go on to another incarnation in another location.
Are we judged or punished for our mistakes in the afterlife?
I grew up being taught that we are judged or punished in our afterlife, and there was a binary thing. We would either make it to heaven or we would make it to hell. I absolutely do not believe that is true now, and this is based on my experience with near-death experiencers, with mediums that I've spoken with common sense. I think it doesn't make sense that we would be judged eternally for something we did temporarily. When people talk about judgment, I think they're thinking of the life review, which can feel like judgment, but we are the ones judging ourselves. It's not someone outside of ourselves. It's not a pass fail. It's not, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go directly to eternal torment. So when it comes to afterlife, I don't fear judgment, but I do wonder how I'm going to judge myself, or how I'm going to view my life or evaluate my life when I go into the afterlife. So I do plan my life around knowing that one day I'm going to look back on it and I'm going to decide, yeah, you did that well, or you should have done that better.
Is there such a thing as hell?
When it comes to hell, absolutely do not believe in a place of permanent torment where we're sent by someone else. Now, the movie What Dreams May Come is one of my favorite movies. I think they did a really good job of depicting what I think people perceive or misperceive as hell. We can lock ourselves into a state of torment. We can feel like we're not good enough to go on to the next level. And we can create our own hell, whether it's be on this earth or in the next life. But we can also take ourselves out of it, or we can ask for help. And in every near-death experience that I've experienced or that I've talked to that's had a hellish near-death experience, that's what's happened. They've asked to be taken out of it, and they've been immediately released.
Describe the life review.
So life review is a chance for us to take a look at, did I accomplish the goals I wanted to do when I was there? Could I have done that a little bit better? And maybe even as a tool to plan your next incarnation.
What is karma?
Karma is a complicated, tricky subject. It basically means, though, what you put out, you'll get back. Or as Jesus said, what you sow, you will reap. So some people think that karma is punishment, that if I do something bad to you, something bad is going to happen to me. I don't see it that way. I think it's more of a tendency. It's not a universe accounting sheet or a balance sheet. But I do believe that if we do, for example, what we consider bad things in this life, our soul might say, I need to experience that mistake that I made, so I'm going to actually suffer what I experienced. So I talked to someone very recently who had near-death experience, and she said, be very careful. For example, if you're a racist, that you hate a certain race of people, you may very well choose to come back as that race of people and experience that hatred that you were putting out to them. So I believe in karma more like that. It's more of a choice or a universal kind of a balancing as opposed to a system of rewards and punishment.
How do you define forgiveness?
What I want to say about forgiveness is, first of all, forgiveness is not a duty. It's not something that we have to do. It's not even necessarily for the other person. It's a releasing of ourselves from the past for what someone's done to us. It's, as Oprah said, I believe it was, it's giving up all hope for a better past. Forgiveness comes about when we have true understanding. I believe if we could truly understand where another person is coming from, that forgiveness would never even be required. So the goal, I think, is to get to the point where we don't even have to forgive people because we know that people are coming from whatever their experience is and they're doing the best that they can. So when it comes to forgiveness, people will say things like, well, I can forgive a driver that cut me off, but I can't forgive someone who's really causing harm, who's really done something bad in the world. Well, I've interviewed people who have been sexually assaulted. I've interviewed a woman who was beaten by her father daily for about 8 years. And I've seen people forgive things that we would consider to be unforgivable. And beyond just forgiving those things, to come to the point where they think that person was actually playing a role in my life. And I interviewed this woman I will never forget. She said she's looking forward to seeing her sexual assaulter in heaven and giving him a hug because she understands that where she is now she would not be possible if it hadn't been for all the things that she's been through. So I don't mean to dismiss the real harm that people can cause in the world, but also understanding that from a soul's perspective, we are eternal. We can never truly be harmed, and these are all temporary experiences. When we can get to that point while we're living in this physical world, we can actually learn to forgive anything.
Discuss the idea of oneness/unity and how we can apply it in our everyday lives.
When it comes to oneness/unity, that is something that pretty much every near death experiencer tells us that we are all one. And it's not metaphorical. It doesn't mean we're all part of the same family. It means we're all part of the same collective, all part of the same collective consciousness. We're coming here, we're having an experience where we experience ourselves as individuals, as fractals. But as humans, if we can start to understand and just start to comprehend a little bit about how one we are, we can make this world a much better place, even while we're incarnated. When it comes to the concept of oneness, one of the things I try to do is I try to do some practices. One is I have a little game I play with myself. I look at people and I try to see them as a baby, as they were as a baby. I try to see them as they will be as an old person, to try to get myself out of identifying with them with just the body that they're in. When I think about reincarnation, the fact that I have probably been all genders, we think of two genders, but all genders. I've probably been all races. I've been, various nationalities. When I look at people of other nationalities and races and genders, I can see myself in them. So these are some practical ways we can start to at least peek behind the veil a little bit and see each other as souls and all being united, as opposed to being the temporary vessels that we happen to be walking around in.
Where is heaven?
So, where is heaven? Well, heaven is not a physical location. Heaven is actually a state of mind more than it is a place. We can actually experience heaven when we're here. We can have, some people have out of body experiences. If you're a meditator, you might have experienced a heaven type experience. It might be temporary, but you might have experienced that. So, as opposed to thinking of heaven as a place or even a dimension, think of it more as a state of mind.
Where is God?
God is a massive concept that I don't believe with our limited brains that we can really get our minds around. And it reminds me of a quote someone said about quantum physics. And they said, if you think you understand quantum physics, you haven't begun to understand it. God is a very large concept. I don't believe that God is a being. I don't believe God is in a location. Think of more of God as the source, the ground that from which everything springs. I don't think I'll ever see God. I don't think it's possible to see God, but we can see representations of God and we can see that all around us.
Many believe we're shifting to a higher consciousness on this planet. Do you agree? And if so, can you describe this shift?
I hear a lot of people saying that the planet is shifting to a higher level of consciousness, that we're going into the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension. I am decidedly undecided on that. I believe that this planet, the flaws on this planet are actually built in, they're baked in. We come here to experience the separation, the fear, and all those things, as well as the highs. So I don't know that Earth will ever become a utopia. On the other hand, I believe we're all here to make that happen. I believe it's something that we're here to work for. It's something that I have dedicated my life to doing to try to make this a better place. So it's one of those goals that I don't know if we'll ever reach, but I know we should always strive for it.
What's the secret to remembering who we really are?
The way to remember who we really are in this lifetime, for me, has been through lots of study. Studying all the science on the afterlife, studying philosophy, studying religion, talking to near death experiencers, talking to people or mediums that reach out to the next world, and to look around the world and see it for what it truly is, which is a temporary location where we come to learn. Okay, so who and what we really are, we are really eternal light beings, if you will. We are eternal, powerful beings, creative beings made in the image of our God, if you want to put it that way. We're all perfectly perfect in a sense. We come here to experience this temporary separation. We can identify with the body because this illusion is so real and we are so immersed in it that we often refer to ourselves as this is me. And for me, I try to separate myself from that and understand that I am this eternal being having this temporary experience and using this body like a scuba diver uses a scuba suit.
What does our soul want us to know?
What our soul wants us to know is that we are all okay, that everything is okay. We are eternally loved and we are very powerful, creative creatures. Our soul wants us to remember that. We kind of play this game when we come here. It's like a game of hide and seek. We put on the veil of forgetfulness and then we try to remember who we are. And our soul wants us to say, hey, you can wake up in the dream. You can become lucid in this reality that you're in right now and understand who you are and have fun with the game and be curious and grow and help other people to grow while you're still there in that game or in that illusion.
Is there a positive message or message of hope you'd like to leave us with?
The message I like to leave us with is that everything is okay, everything will be okay, and that we are eternally loved more than we can ever imagine. If you can remember those three things, no matter what circumstance you're in, everything around you will be fine. I was just talking to someone a couple of days ago. It was a very love and light kind of person, and she said to me, one of the ways I keep myself at a high vibration is I don't watch the news. And I've heard a lot of people say, I'm not going to watch the news. I'm going to check out on what's going on around me. I'm actually the opposite. I watch the news a lot. But when I watch it, I try to remember that this is all an illusion. This is all temporary. And I'm here to affect it, to have my play my part in it, to play my role in it, but to not let it take me down and not let make me feel like that everything is not okay because everything always is and always will be.